Welcome back to the deep dive. We're here again, digging into complex topics, getting right to the sources, and pulling out the key insights you need.
Exactly. And this is part of our ongoing series, working through the Manual of Patent Examining Procedure, the MPEP. We're aiming for, concise summaries, section by section, to really build up that understanding of U.S. patent law.
Yep, building it block by block. And we're currently in chapter 1800. That's the one all about the Patent Cooperation Treaty, the PCT.
Right, the PCT, think of it as the framework for filing internationally, seeking protection in multiple countries with, well, one initial application.
Streamlines things a bit, and today we're zeroing in on a really specific but honestly super important part of that, MPEP section 1825. It's all about the drawings.
Crucial stuff.
Absolutely. So for this deep dive, we're not just listing rules. We want to really unpack the why behind the standards for drawings in the international phase. What's required, why it's so specific, and what it means for you if you get it right or wrong.
Yeah, the implications are pretty significant. Let's get into it.
Okay, so first big question. Drawings in a PCT application, are they always a must-have or sometimes optional?
Okay, so the core idea in Section 1825 is this. Drawings are mandatory if they're necessary to understand the invention. That's the fundamental test.
Necessary for understanding.
Exactly. If someone can't really grasp how your invention works or what it looks like just from the words you've written, then yeah, drawings are required. Not just nice to have, but required.
Okay, that makes sense. Necessity is the key. But what if, your invention is pretty clear from the text? Maybe that's a chemical process or some kind of method. Can you still throw in drawings?
Oh, absolutely. Even if they aren't strictly mandatory under that necessity rule, you can still include drawings. And honestly, it's often a really good idea.
Why is that?
Well, they can just make things so much clearer for the examiner, for anyone looking at it later.
Yeah.
Plus, here's a key thing to remember. Even if drawings aren't needed in the international phase, when your application goes into the national phase in specific countries, those national patent offices might still require drawings based on their own laws. So including them up front can save you hassle down the road.
Good point. Sort of a better safe than sorry approach. Okay, so when we say drawings, what are we actually talking about? Is it just like mechanical blueprints?
That's a great question, because it's broader than that. Section 1825 specifically mentions that flow sheets and diagrams count as drawings too.
Flow sheets, diagrams.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you've invented a process or a system or maybe software architecture that you show visually, those visuals, they fall under these same drawing rules.
Okay. So a wide range of visuals. Now, what if drawings are needed, or maybe an examiner decides they are after you file? Is there a formal way they ask for them?
Yep, there is. The source material points to PCT Rule 7. This rule kicks in if, say, the International Searching Authority looks at your application and thinks, I really need drawings to understand this, and you didn't provide enough or any.
Okay.
They can formally request that you submit them.
And do they give you a deadline? You can't just leave it open-ended, right?
No, definitely not. Rule 7 is clear. The request has to include a reasonable deadline, and it specifies that deadline can't be less than 2 months.
2 months minimum. Okay, that seems fair. Now, let's brace ourselves. The physical rules, the formatting. This seems to be where things get really, really specific.
Oh, you are absolutely right. This is where PCT Rule 11 dominates, and Section 1825 brings it all in. And yes, the rules are famously strict, almost legendary.
Like what? Give us the highlights or maybe the lowlights, depending on how you look at it.
Okay, first big one. Sheet size has to be A4.
A4, not U.S. letter?
Nope, A4. That trips up a lot of U.S. applicants. They're slightly different sizes. It has to be A4.
Got it. A4 only. What else? Margins?
Margins are specified precisely, down to the millimeter for top, bottom, left, right. You got to nail those.
Wow, okay. Lines?
Lines have to be durable, dense, uniform, well-defined black lines, crisp, clear, easy to reproduce. No faint pencil lines.
Black lines. What about color? Can we use color these days?
The million-dollar question. And the answer is almost always surprising. No.
Yeah.
Color drawings are not accepted in the international phase.
No color at all, even with digital filing. Why?
It sounds archaic, right? But it's actually about ensuring universal consistency and reproducibility. Think about it. Applications go to dozens of offices worldwide, using different scanners, printers, maybe even microfilm back in the day.
Okay. Reliability.
Exactly. Black and white line drawings are the most reliable format to ensure everyone sees the same thing clearly. It's a standardization thing for global processing.
Makes sense when you put it that way. Okay, so A4, exact margins, black lines. What about putting text on the drawings, like labels?
Very, very restricted. You can only use a few absolutely necessary words,
Like what?
like open, closed, section AA, maybe water, steam, component names like resistor. Really basic identifiers. You can't put descriptive sentences or paragraphs explaining how something works on the drawing itself.
So the drawing shows it doesn't tell, essentially.
Precisely. It needs to be visually understandable with minimal text.
Okay. Beyond those physical paper and ink rules, what about the actual graphics? Like how things are drawn, cross-sections, for instance.
Right. Graphical integrity is key.
Yeah.
Because these drawings might get reduced in size for publication or electronic viewing, they need to stay clear. And yes, cross-sections have a specific rule. Must be shown using oblique hatching.
Oblique hatching, like angled lines.
Yeah, those parallel angled lines. You can't use solid black fill or stippling or other patterns for cross-sections. Just that standard hatching. Again, consistency.
Okay, oblique hatching for cross-sections. And how should the different the different views be laid out on the page?
Good question.
Right.
They need to be clearly separated. Don't cram them together so they touch.
Right.
And whenever possible, arrange them upright on the sheet so you read them normally. Each figure needs a number, consecutive Arabic numerals. And this is important. You have to put fig before the number.
Figure 1, figure 2, etc.
Exactly. Figure 1, figure 2, figure 3. Even if figure 1 is on sheet 1 and figure 3 is way over on sheet 5, sequential order across all sheets.
Got it. Sequential with fig. And the overall look. Should it fill the page?
The goal is space efficiency, but clarity comes first. Use the space well. Don't leave huge, unnecessary gaps, but don't overlap figures either. And no fancy borders around the usable area, just the figures themselves.
Clean, clear, efficient. Makes sense. You mentioned sheets. How do you number the sheets themselves?
That's also specific. It needs to be a fraction. So if you have, say, 5 sheets of drawings total, the first sheet is number 15, second 25, then 35, 45, 55.
Okay, so you always know the total number of sheets and which one you're looking at.
Exactly. Helps keep everything organized, especially internationally.
Smart. And what about reference signs, those little numbers or letters pointing to parts?
Consistency is absolutely king here. If you label a specific screw as 12 in figure 1, it must be 12 every time that same screw appears in any other figure. And critically, that 12 in the drawing must correspond to the part called 12 in your written description.
So the description and drawings have to talk to each other perfectly using those numbers.
Perfectly. It's vital for understanding the claims and what you've actually invented.
Okay. And what if you have, like, a really big diagram? Something that just won't fit on one A4 sheet?
If you have a single figure that has to span multiple sheets, you need to arrange them so they can be, well, seamlessly put together. Imagine laying them out side by side. They should line up perfectly to show the complete figure without any weird gaps or overlaps.
Like a map spread across pages?
Kind of, yeah. They have to assemble correctly.
Man, the detail here is incredible.
Okay, we've covered drawings, diagrams, flow sheets. What about photographs? Can you just submit a photo instead?
Generally, no. The PCT standard is line drawings. Photographs are typically not allowed.
Okay, generally no. Are there exceptions?
There is one very narrow exception mentioned. Photographs might be accepted, but only in really rare cases where a traditional drawing just cannot capture the necessary detail.
What kind of detail are we talking about? The classic example given is crystalline structures, where the specific visual form is the invention and a line drawing wouldn't do it justice. Or maybe certain biological specimens. It's really specific stuff.
So, highly unusual case.
Very unusual. And even then, if a photograph is allowed under this exception.
Let me guess. Rules apply.
Oh, yes. Black and white photos only. And they still have to meet all the other format rules, A4 size, the correct margins, proper mounting if needed. You can't just paste in a snapshot.
Black and white, A4 margins. Even for the rare photo, it really hammers home the need for standardization. Okay, let's make this concrete. The source mentioned an example, a complex mechanical system. How would these rules work there?
Right, okay. Imagine you've invented, say, a new type of intricate gearbox, lots of interlocking parts, shafts, housing.
Yeah.
If someone reading your text description cannot understand how those parts fit together and work without seeing it visually, then drawings are mandatory. They're necessary under Section 1825.
Okay, necessity kicks in.
But even if your description is crystal clear, adding drawings of the gearbox is probably still a good idea, right? For clarity.
Sure, makes sense.
Now, applying the rules. Let's say you submit your gearbox drawings, but one sheet is printed on US letter instead of A4, or the left margin is 2 mm too small, Or you added a little note on figure 3 saying input shaft rotates fast.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh is right.
Right.
Any of those things, wrong size, wrong margin, prohibited text, could trigger an objection from the International Bureau or the searching authority.
And if you get an objection, what happens then?
Well, you'll likely be asked to fix it.
Uh-huh.
You'll need to file corrected drawings that comply with all the rules.
Which sounds like delays and costs.
Exactly. You might need to pay a draftsperson again. There could be fees for submitting replacements. And crucially, it slows down the whole process for your international application. Getting it right the first time avoids all that.
Definitely want to avoid delays.
Yeah.
You also mentioned drawings can be amended.
Yes, they can be, both during the international phase and later on during the national phase in individual countries. But there's a huge caveat.
Which is?
You cannot introduce new matter.
New matter. That's a fundamental patent concept. What does it mean for drawings?
It means you can only amend the drawings to show things that were already disclosed somewhere in your application as you originally filed it. You can correct errors, maybe add a figure that clarifies something clearly described in the text or shown in another view.
Okay.
But you can't add a feature or a detail or a component that wasn't mentioned or shown at all in the original filing documents, the description, the claims, or the original drawings. That would be adding new information after the fact, which isn't allowed.
So you can clarify what was there, but you can't add something you forgot or invented later.
Precisely. You're stuck with the content of your original disclosure.
Got it. And there was a quick note in the sources about how the USPTO handles drawing problems internally.
Yeah, it's just an interesting procedural point. It says, if USPTO examiners get the search copy and drawings are missing, or if they spot irregularities, bad margins, wrong size, text issues, things like that, they're directed to consult with quality assurance people or special program examiners.
So it's not just up to the individual examiner, there's a process.
Right. It shows these rules are taken seriously and handled consistently within the office, too.
Okay, we've gone through a ton of very specific, very detailed rules. Let's go back again. For the listener, the inventor, the applicant, the agent, why does sweating these details like A4 paper and oakley catching really matter? What's the payoff?
That's the key question, isn't it? And the answer is, these rules, however nitpicky they seem, are about making the global patent system work. They ensure consistency and clarity across borders, languages, and different patent offices.
It's about smooth sailing.
Pretty much. When your drawings comply with PCT Rule 11 and Section 1825, you're providing visual information in a format that everyone in the system understands and can reproduce reliably. That means fewer objections, fewer delays.
Which saves time and money.
Definitely. It also makes it easier for the examiners doing the international search and preliminary examination to grasp your invention quickly and accurately. And that can lead to a better, more efficient examination.
And downstream, too, in national offices.
Absolutely. Clear, compliant drawings make the handover to national offices smoother. It helps them understand the invention and determine patentability, and ultimately helps the public understand the scope of any patent you get granted. Nailing these details up front is really an investment in the entire life cycle of your patent application.
It really sounds like mastering these drawing rules is non-negotiable for playing effectively in the PCT arena. So to wrap up, MPP Section 1825. Drawings are mandatory if needed for understanding, but follow incredibly strict rules under PCT Rule 11, think A4, exact margins, crisp black lines only, no color, barely any text.
Right.
Plus specific ways to show things like cross-sections, clear figure arrangement, fig numbering, fractional sheet numbering, and absolute consistency with reference signs. Photos, almost never allowed. Amendments, possible, but absolutely no new matter.
You got it.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of PCT drawings. Hopefully this sheds light on why getting them right is so critical for your international plans.
And before we go, we really want to extend a special thank you to Mike Shepard. He's the creative director who organized this entire audio series.
Yes, thank you, Mike. And now, the necessary disclaimer. This summary of the MPP was generated using AI tools, including ChatGPT and NotebookLM, and may contain errors or omissions. It is provided for general, educational, and informational purposes only, and is not legal advice or a substitute for formal instruction. For authoritative guidance, consult the official MPEP, a qualified instructor, or a registered patent practitioner.
And maybe a final thought to chew on. Isn't it fascinating that in our incredibly visual, digital, multimedia age, the global system for protecting cutting-edge innovation still hinges so strongly on these very precise black and white line drawings? Rules defined for maximum clarity and reproducibility across diverse systems, yes, but how does that constraint perhaps shape the way inventors even conceptualize and communicate their complex ideas for legal protection? Does the medium subtly influence the message?
That's a deep one to ponder. Thanks again for listening. Join us next time for another deep dive.